Hi Founder fans, Jason here, and today we're going to be talking about the midnight ride that saved independence. And the star of today's show is Caesar Rodney. If you have not heard of Caesar Rodney, it's not very surprising. He is not the most famous founder, of course. He was there the whole time and was important in his own way, but really he had this one moment, this one shining moment, as we will talk about today. But first, a little background. Caesar Rodney had grown up fairly poor, had a little education, and had asthma, and he decided to apply himself, and he excelled, and when he came to adulthood, he ended up becoming sheriff of Kent County in Delaware. And this was an important position, not only because, you arrested criminals, but you could appoint justices who then set tax rates. So it was a real big stepping stone for any person who did not come from wealth to jump into the political arena for the first time. And that's what he did. Over the ensuing years, he'd hold several positions, working his way up, from clerk of a county courthouse and sheriff, all the way up to Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of Delaware. So he does all this, everything's great, and then Britain starts doing some terrible things, and Caesar Rodney goes to the Stamp Act Congress in 1765, which I've talked about before. It was the first time all the colonies united together with delegates to send a message to King and Parliament saying, what you're doing is wrong, fix what you're doing. And being sent to that was a very important thing for a man who came from very little background. So a few more years go by and the revolution breaks out. Rodney goes to the First Continental Congress and signs the Articles of Association, goes home, goes to the Second Continental Congress. But the war breaks out and there's a loyalist uprising in Delaware. So Rodney has to go home to suppress this. And while he's home, on July 1st, 1776, he gets a message that says, hey, they're going to vote for independence tomorrow. Now, this is humongously important for several reasons. First of all, he's a delegate. He really should be there to vote. Secondly, I'll remind you that we like to celebrate the 4th of July because that's the day the Declaration of Independence as a document was approved. But the United States voted to be independent on July 2nd. And this is July 1st. So the vote's the next day, and Rodney realizes what everyone else knew. There were 3 delegates from Delaware in the Continental Congress. Rodney, who was home, Thomas McKeon, who was for independence, and George Reed, who was against independence. So it was really important. If Delaware wanted to vote for independence, they needed Rodney there to break the tie. And additionally, people like John Adams and Benjamin Franklin were very much adamant that this be a united front, that all 13 colonies involved had to vote for independence. It needed to be unanimous. And Rodney knew this. So Rodney gets on his horse and starts riding to Philadelphia. Overnight, in the rain, in a lightning storm, the worst conditions. Oh yeah, also, Rodney was suffering from facial cancer, which he suffered from most of his life and endured many painful treatments that never worked. So he always kept a sash over a side of his face to hide his deformity, if I can call it that, because he was embarrassed about it and he didn't want it to be off-putting to other people. So again, he's riding all night, in the middle of the night, in the pitch black, except for the bolts of lightning and the rain pouring down and half his face covered with the sash, and he makes it to Philadelphia just as the storm clears and just as the delegates are arriving to vote for independence. And he walks in. They call Delaware. Rodney says, aye. And then he collapses in his chair. But we have a nation. It's one of those unbelievable moments that makes studying the revolution so much fun. And that make being an American so much fun. It's kind of insane to me that how many of you might have never heard of Caesar Rodney before. Although if you watch regularly, you watch American Revolution videos and you probably know who he is. But either way, Rodney would go on to be governor for several years of Delaware. Unfortunately, the cancer would take his life just 8 years later, and he would die in 1784 or 85, I believe. So he did see the United States become a nation, and he did see that his work was worth it. Unfortunately, he never saw the United States Constitution and the first presidency. But he is one of the most important founders, if only for that brief moment that he saved independence. So that's the story of Caesar Rodney. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please hit like. It really helps me. And subscribe if this is your first time seeing my videos. I put these out 5 days a week. My name is Jason, and thank you so much for watching.